Welcome to episode 32 of Masters of the Forge.
Welcome to the world of tomorrow!
Tomorrowland, super tomorrow, like not just tomorrow, but
Well,
300 and something million, thousand, trillion tomorrows.
Well, I was about to say that welcome to the world of something like 3 days ago when we recorded this. So, it's episode 32 of Masters of the Forge, and today we're going to talk about Kor Megron's Warband of evil Space Marines versus the Ultramarines' second company.
Of evil Space Marines.
Actually, I think they're more like pretty Marines.
They're kind of fabulous.
Yes.
Oh boy, what a fortnight this has been for me, Snorri. It has been quite the action-packed adventure of hobby and community goodness and not so goodness.
So, do you hate yourself now, or are you glad you're done?
I think the scars that are left by self-flagellation are well earned.
Yeah.
I did finish building the Necrons, and I then spent last weekend, that being the last weekend to the listeners, between Friday afternoon to Monday morning. Yes, I took Monday off to finish them and drink and finally go see Mad Max. But I spent three-ish days painting 160 warriors, an Illuminator Caesaros conversion, a Cryptek conversion, and 11 scarabs, fully painted, above tabletop ready. I still have to finish like the bases 100%. I chose a very detailed base, so these were my steps. I sprayed them with like a forest green from top to bottom, toe to forehead. Then I did a side paint of this more of an olive color, like an olive drab type color. And then I did a zenithal, which means above spray paint of this Labrador brown color. So they started with a very green tinge, and I took that from that lesson from James Wapple. He made that suggestion on the Screaming Heretic podcast a while back to do different base coats in order to bring out certain colors and certain feelings in your units.
Yeah, and you did the rainbow.
Yeah, I finished it off with silver dry brush, I stippled with the Doom Bull brown, then I stippled with nutmeg brown, which is a apple barrel color, and dry brushed with lead belcher. But yeah, each unit the guns are painted, like the gun, like glowy parts are painted a different color for unit designation. But considering last weekend's events,
and that was an interesting 1 hour forced break. Thank you, Power Company.
Yeah, woo, okay. Well, as I was saying,
an hour ago,
last weekend was rather apropos for painting my Necrons due to some of the events that occurred in the United States. So I have a complete rainbow Necron Warriors coalition.
Yeah, was it John that made a joke of the Pride Crons?
Pride Crons, yes, very nice. I appreciate that. And I could actually say that it's an homage to our local army regiment, Rainbow Division, so I could do that. But yeah, those are done. Super excited about that, to have a Necron army. I played a couple games, some successful, some not. It definitely lacks the ability to handle any kind of fast assault unit. I just get torn up and chased off the field. So I don't know. I might add some things. I might not. It's It's really kind of in flux right now. I really enjoy the whole walking across the battlefield, implacable force, poo 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 poo. So I think really the only thing that would be in fluff for me would be a Catan shard. Which is basically the whole storyline of the Guardians of Saval. Saval is a Catan shard that that's the whole point of them being there. It's a Catan shard that's housed in this temple to the Catan, and it is guarded by this giant army of warriors. So kind of like the terracotta warriors in China. So I'm wondering if I'll craft up a really cool Catan shard, like Nightbringer or something, and take that formation that you get 2 Cryptex, and it's in a unit with the Catan shard, and the Catan shard gets Feel No Pain for each Cryptek in there, so you can have 5+ Feel No Pain, and there's a relic that a Cryptek can take that gives it +1 strength and toughness. So it'd be a toughness 8 Catan shard going rah across the battlefield. So that would be pretty cool. They're kind of slow though, so I don't know. We'll see. It'll be a fun project regardless. But yeah, I want to thank everybody who came and hung out with me while I was doing that project. It was brutal. I didn't get a lot of sleep. Brandon, Soshi, my buddy Jason, my buddy John, a bunch of people came and hung out with me while I did that, and I really appreciate it.
You actually mentioned Nightbringer. I do actually like the Deceiver model a little bit better. It looks more like a... I don't know. It looks more alive than the Nightbringer. Nightbringer's sort of like doom and gloom. But I like the look of the Deceiver.
Right, yeah. They're pretty cool. I'm not sure. I really have never played with one before, so I'm probably going to do some test games, see which one feels better for my for the army.
Well, you don't really need to worry about that because a Catan shard is a Catan shard, and they don't really. It doesn't matter whether you use one or the other, just like for aesthetics.
Yeah, I don't think it'll. You're probably right. It really doesn't matter aesthetics wise. You know what I use, to be perfectly honest. So that's filled my life basically.
Yeah,
I've got,
and you also actually did prove that Necrons are ridiculously easy to work with. Mostly because, well, you do actually spend 3 days assembling and painting a whole bunch of them.
Yeah, exactly. It's you can get your army painted, and I wasn't even like, I didn't even cut corners really. I mean, there's a lot of steps to these. The one interesting thing about painting that many models in one go is, and trying to do it in a X amount of time, every single decision you make can have hours of impact. So you make one wrong choice as far as painting the model is concerned, and you're making that one wrong choice with 170 models, which can be hours of wasted time. So you really want to make sure you've got your decision making finished before you start painting. I wrote some articles for Frontline Gaming. One of them was a little contentious, and I knew it would be contentious when I set out to write it. The article was called "You Are Not a Realist." It's talking about how people who say they're realists are actually like cynics and negative people. I spent a month writing it, and it still seems like off. I was trying to do it in a way not to piss people off, but I knew that it would. So I don't know. It is what it is. I put it out there. I decided I was going to publish it, and Frontline published it. So,
at least it's not the link bait articles that have been popping up on the 40k scene lately.
Yeah, it's as close to that as I'll ever come. And I also posted an article about the Titans on there too. So if anybody wants to take a look at those articles, and then a lot of other cool articles, go on to frontlinegaming.org and check it out. I've really been enjoying their live streams on Twitch. They do some fun live streams. They're not narrative, but we have people like Striking Scorpion for that awesomeness. But yeah, Frontline Gaming, it's a lot of fun to watch them while you paint or whatever. A lot of that got me through. That got me through a lot of the 160 Warrior Challenge. So really pleased with that. But aside from that, I guess what am I going to do next? Well, I have lots of projects. Let's leave the random orc stuff I have aside, right? I have 5 to medium to biggish projects. I've got the dorks, my demon orcs, right? I've got my Diggas, which the one gentleman sent me a bunch of Digga models, and I found a bunch of awesome true 28 millimeter miniatures that would actually work really well with my Digga models. And that also has 3 Lehman Russ battle tanks that I can add to that army to kind of make it a what do you call it? The Imperial Guard supplemental list.
Scions?
No, the what are they called? Renegades. So I'll be using those. You'll be using the Renegades rules for those so that they ally well with my orcs. I've also got the Looted Thunderhawk, which I really would love to start. And I have the Sisters of Battle Army, which I have all the pieces for. I just haven't really done it yet. So, and that's what the Sisters of Battle are, part of that came from doing the Titans. So I don't know. What do you think, Snorri? Which one do you think I should do? The Dorks, the Thunderhawk, the Diggas, or the Sisters? I also have some Space Wolves.
But I would say the Dorks first, and then the Diggas.
Yeah.
Or like either Diggas or the Looted Thunderhawk, because I would like to see both of them.
Yeah, you think so? So either the Dorks or the Looted Thunderhawk?
Yeah. No, the Dorks first, and then either the Diggas or the Thunderhawk is what I would see.
Yeah, because, and the Dorks are assembled and ready to go. So that's actually a good point, because they are. If I paint what I have assembled of the Dorks, I'll have 1,000 points of a Khorne Demonkin. So maybe you're right, Snorri, because I can get those painted up pretty quickly too. But that's it for me. Snorri, what have you been up to? You've had a busy couple of weeks.
Yeah, in a way, though not so much hobby busy. I came back from Iceland just a couple of days, spent a week there.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was amazing. Iceland is really beautiful. So if any of our listeners are going to Iceland in the near future, you feel free to hit me up. I have some recommendations on things you can do, things you can try to avoid, and places to eat and everything. That's free advice. And, podcast or hobby related stuff. Yesterday, I couldn't really sleep, so I decided to knock back some energy drinks and sit up until 7:30 in the morning, as in 4 or 5 hours before we started recording, and paint some more Mishima Ronin, because I finally found them. I had hidden them away a little bit so I wouldn't get paint on them when I started spraying some of the orange stuff on my Firehawks. And I totally forgot where I put them, so I've been looking all over the place and finally found them. And now I think it's just the rifles that I need to finish, and some minor details here and there, and I actually have my first squad of Mishima Ronin completed.
Nice. Yeah, I saw the pictures. They're looking pretty good, dude.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with the result. There are some minor things I would like to change, but it's like going back and changing that, I'm not sure if it's worth it. Mm-hmm. And I looked at the heads, because I was trying to get, they're real scale 28 millimeter, or true scale. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to get them kind of realistic looking, and I hate painting skin tones.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the reasons why my Marines are always helmeted, with the exception of some of my Plague Marines. But, they're like blood-drained flesh, so it's just gray.
Mm-hmm.
The heads on these Ronin came out a little Caucasian-looking, a little bit too sort of like red in the skin. They're missing that slightly yellow tone to it, or brownish yellow tone. But once I put the heads on the bodies, it actually looks pretty good.
It's probably the red in the in the models that's actually, maybe making it seem like the red in the flesh is less. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, it might be. So overall, I'm pretty happy. I actually started out with the wrong base color, so I was looking for like a darkish red or orangey red kind of base coat for this, and I chose something called German orange, which is really orangey red. And when I looked over my paints, I was like, wait a minute, that's not the skin color I was supposed to start with. So everything started out too red, but I think the result is okay. And I also put some ochre down for the uniforms on my Renegade Ogrons. So I started putting some paint on them, and they're supposed to be the same skin or same color scheme as the Cadian Plague Zombies that I already did. So, Nurgle doesn't like waste, so he recycles where he can. So that's one of the reasons why I have Cadian Zombies. And, former renegades who died and were resurrected because, well, we can always use them a little bit more.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to seeing that army develop, and I think you've got a great basis there for those colors so far.
Yeah, I am really looking forward to it. It's going to be interesting to see how I work out the skin colors on these guys, because these renegades are not dead, so they will have real skin colors, but I need to make it look slightly desiccated. Yeah, slightly desiccated, slightly diseased kind of thing. Maybe a little bit purple.
Sores.
Yeah.
Sores and boils and bruises and stuff.
Yeah, that kind of thing. So I guess some skin. Purple in there for some bruising. Some like inflamed red kind of, but I'm not really sure how to do it. So if anyone has any tips on how to do that kind of skin color, feel free to drop me a line at Masters of the Forge on Facebook. That's the best place probably. And give me some tips, pointers to video guides or something, just so I can have a look, because I'm open for anything. I want these to look really nice.
The internet has been blowing up with this Age of Sigmar stuff, right? I'm like,
it seems to be like a watershed thing.
Yeah, I'm like, I should like, I have all these conspiracy theories regarding Sigmar and the Emperor and the Lost Legions and stuff. So please hold me back about that.
Yeah, I've always had this idea, I guess, that technically fantasy is after 40k, since the inclusion of Slaanesh being born in the 40k universe and being present in fantasy from the beginning, apparently, sort of could mean that fantasy could be afterwards. But every time I air this with Games Workshop people, they're like, completely different universes, nothing related, so we don't care.
And also, there's also the argument that when Slaanesh was birthed by the Eldar, that means that it had always existed, because what reasons, crazy time, space-time warpy stuff, like timey-wimey bits is
well, in this universe, there is a fixed timeline. So
well, there is, but the warp doesn't care about our timeline. So like if Slaanesh was born yesterday through the warp as a god, then Slaanesh always existed, even though she was born yesterday. Like it's
but not
kind
really.
of weird way to wrap your brain around it. Either way, I get your point though, because either it's concurrent or I don't know. It's just weird. I don't think they'll ever answer the question, but I think with these Sigmar like angelic warriors, which I think is a great move, by the way. I'm really actually hoping for a companion like 40K alternative book like with the demons. Having these angelic warriors is really cool. I'm surprised it took them this long to do it, actually, to be perfectly honest, for as long as we've had demons out there. But it's cool. I mean, I'm loving the rules. Like I looked at like today has been all about the crazy fun rules, like if you scream an insult at your opponent, you get to reroll dice. Or if you have a more impressive, larger and more impressive mustache than your opponent, you get special in-game abilities. Like,
yeah,
awesome.
It's sort of like Magic the Gathering. Was it Unraveled?
Yeah, it is so cool. I am so excited. I can't wait for the first argument at a table between a person who's like, nah, dude, you did not do the thing that you need to do to get those rerolls, and the other person like, you shouldn't have to do those, stupid. Yeah, I can't wait for it because that's going to be a beautiful day.
Yeah. My favorite.
There's always killjoys who don't want to do the fun things.
It is.
They don't want to feel silly, and it's like, well, feel silly or don't get the reroll.
Yeah. My favorite kind of moment, this is from Magic the Gathering though, but one of my favorite moments when it comes to completely stupid and silly gaming is when we played Magic the Gathering, one of those Unraveled series, and one of the guys plays a card that forces you to, in order to play the card, you have to go up on your chair and do a chicken dance and cluck.
Yes. Yeah, I remember that.
Doing that, it just makes it completely stupid, and those cards are just so broken. It's ridiculous, but you have to do so many silly things. And I think you nailed it when you said on Facebook that this seems a bit like Games Workshop is just thumbing their nose and just making fun of people who take themselves too seriously.
Yeah, they're doubling down on the whole, hey bro, play this game with your friends and have fun with it.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Well, anyways, I think we have an episode to present to everyone here.
Yeah. Apparently it's cool it's a Demon Prince versus Sicarius, and we all know who wins in the end. Boo.
Boo. Boo. The orcs?
I think
we
the Eldar
always win. It doesn't matter if we're not featured in the story, we still win.
Yeah, and also probably the Eldar were involved at some point, even though it doesn't say anything about it, because no one ever suspected.
Yeah. Well, yeah, of course, clearly. All right, I guess let's move on, but first let's hear some words from my dear wife Wendy. I think she has something to tell us.
Are you looking for a good hobby blog? Are you in need of a tutorial? Maybe you just want some inspiration to help you get started. Well, look no further than the 40K Hobbyist. Drew is a 40K hobby veteran with more than a decade of GW hobby experience under his belt. Follow one man's journey through the hobby as he dabbles in new experiences such as Forge World Titans, building terrain tables, starting new Space Marine chapters, and much, much more. Stop in for modeling tips, tutorials, bits theory discussions, and just to see some darn cool models. If you have any questions, you can always email him, leave a comment on his blog, or reach him through Facebook. He's always willing to do whatever he can to help expand the hobby and make you feel the best painter that you can be. Stop in and check out the 40K Hobbyist at 40khobbyist.blogspot.com. That's 40KHOBBIEST.blogspot.com, or find him on Facebook.
Today's main topic is on Kor Megron's Warband versus the Ultramarine Second Company. We're going to start by talking about Kor Megron's Warband. Let's start with the bad guys first. It's basically a group of Chaos Space Marines that were bound together by this one word bearer's Space Marine called Kor Megron, who is now a demon prince. Well, I'm
pretty sure he still is a word bearer.
Oh yeah,
well, he's dead, but yeah. This word bearer, ex-Space Marine.
Yeah, no longer loyalist word bearer.
Yeah. Of course, his name is Kor Megron, but he is also known as the Reaper of Rodax.
Yes.
Which is where he achieved demonhood.
Right. Originally, when he was just a regular Space Marine, he was in charge of setting up the world of Idolum. And, being a word bearer, it quickly became this giant shrine to the Emperor. And that was a big no-no.
Yeah. It's kind of strange to me that all the Primarchs have daddy issues. Only the word bearers, actually, that's a whole legion with daddy issues.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And even though we don't really know why he fell, specifically his specific story, it's pretty clear that anyone who spent all that time and effort setting up an entire world like as a gift to his father, only to have that kind of cast aside when the Ultramarines and the Emperor come to, what was the name of the planet that they came to?
Rodax.
Was it Rodax?
Oh, sorry, Idolum.
No, was it what was the hold on, I'm gonna look it up. So even though we don't know why Kor Megron and his men fell specifically, but anybody who puts forth all this effort to build a shrine to the Emperor, particularly on Kor, where the Ultramarines basically censured the word bearers and forced them to kneel in the ashes of their own city devoted to the Emperor that the Ultramarines burned to the ground. That tends to leave a mark on your soul. He and a company of his fellow word bearers became loyal to the Dark Powers, swearing to cast down every icon of the false Emperor before they draw their last breath. And they call themselves the Forsworn. They go ahead and spend the next 10 millennia trying to undo the work they did in the name of the Emperor, which I find interesting, though. That's something I hadn't really clicked in my brain about the word bearers till this point, actually. They were censured for their deification of the Emperor, but then they go ahead and spend the rest of time basically following that philosophy of non-emperor worship, right? So they're destroying all these icons and all these cities. They're killing ecclesiarchal officials, destroying holy sites, and obliterating relics and all this. And it's not necessarily against what they were told to do on Kor, right?
Yeah, and I was just thinking about, this sounds really familiar, and that's because the independent characters are currently doing the latest Horus Heresy book, as this is being recorded, which is number 5, The Tempest. And Carl and Don and Jeff, they cover this in nice detail in that episode. So if you're wondering what this is all about, just go there.
Yeah. If you want to hear about the background of this legion,
why the word bearers really hate the Ultramarines.
Yeah. Well, I just picked this topic kind of at random, literally at random, because I wasn't happy with any of the responses we got for this topic. So I just sat and I clicked random article on the Warhammer wiki just to get an odd warband or odd chapter to do, and Kor Megron's warband popped up. I'm like, wow, these guys are cool. And then I started researching, going back in the Wayback Machine on GW's site. There are actual articles about this whole thing, so it's pretty cool. But yeah, quite fortuitous that there is lots of information out there right now regarding the word bearers. Go ahead and take a look. But
they are the rage at Forge World at the moment.
Yes, excellent. See, we're so topical.
Yeah, and totally randomly by accident too. It's amazing.
We are amazing, aren't we? So
you are.
You are. Hey, you know what you are? Gonna tell us about the fall of Rodax.
Segue. Yeah. So the fall of Rodax is where pretty much everything happened. It was at the cardinal world of Rodax that Kor Megron got his demonhood. His warband fought a war of attrition for 3 months, fighting their way into the Basilica of St. Petch. And they were fighting until they ran out of ammo and Kor Megron's power sword was just drained and broken. 2,000 soldiers of the 14th Cadian shock troops assaulted the steps of this basilica, and Kor Megron and his men fought back and finally toppled the statue of St. Petch and piled their bodies of the dead in a grisly display where he stood in total devotion to the ruinous powers. These powers, of course, answered his devotion with, the power of demonhood. That's nice.
Yes.
And even with the forces of the Inquisition bolstering the Cadians, the Guard just couldn't stand against the exaltation of the Chaos Space Marines, who felt as if they'd been specially blessed by the Dark Gods. And
because they had.
Very much. And today, Rodax is considered a dead world, and it's little more than an abandoned charnel house.
Yeah, Rodax is... A dead world is an actual designation for Imperial world, and it's basically, imagine the moon or Mercury. It's just dead.
Yeah. Unlike a death world, which is actually habitable, a dead world is usually just considered, no, we don't go there anymore because, well, something is just making this unlivable. And in this case, it's probably because the entire planet is just ruined statues and bodies everywhere. Well, skeletons, probably.
Right, yeah. So, even though Rodax was one of the most important battles, considering that was where Megron got his demonhood, but the crowning achievement for him would be Idolum itself, the world that he built to glorify the Emperor, and it's basically the crown jewel in his career if he were able to tear that world down and raise it to the ground. But he really, it's a big world, and there's lots of units within striking distance, so he couldn't do it by himself. So he and the Forsworn, his closest troops, all ex-word bearers, scoured the galaxy in search of allies to fight alongside them. And in true Chaos fashion, he did this by calling in old debts or just promising some of the spoils of war to some of these war bands.
And probably just beating some faces and saying, yeah, okay, so I killed your leader, now you belong to me.
Yeah, that's entirely possible. Now, this was really impressive for considering that it was not a Black Crusade. It is one of the few, very, very few points in Imperial history where a Chaos warlord is able to draw together so many disparate groups. Now, the Imperium was also bolstered by allies, including the Cadians, the Vostroyans, the Ventans, the Valhallans, and Orn's World Militia. But that's responded with Kor Megron's Black Legion, Red Corsairs, Night Lords, and others. Now, because they actually... that wasn't part of their original warband, but Kor Megron's battle was almost orc-like in nature, where it kind of drew even more people into the fight because they saw what was going on there. And the Chaos forces did quickly overrun the brave Imperial defenders across the world. And the people prayed for salvation. And you could argue that the prayers were answered, but we'll talk more about that later.
Yep. First, we're going to cover a couple of formations.
Yes, these are all based on the original warbands that Kor Megron drew to him.
And we're starting off with the Sons of Damnation. This is a warband of Terminators, former Wordbearers, who can trace their lineage to the Siege of Terra. So their color scheme is crimson and silver, and the formation is 1 to 3 squads of Chaos Terminators, including no more than 10 Terminators between them. So they're not a big squad.
No, it's actually technically 1 squad of Terminators, but considering the fluidness of these elite troops, I would assume you could break them up into 3 units of like 3 or whatever, whatever you want to do.
And since it's Wordbearers, they are Chaos United, so no Chaos Mark may be chosen. They are fearless, and they enjoy the Feel No Pain special rule. They gain hatred and preferred enemy against Ultramarines.
Because reasons. The Forsworn are also former Wordbearers. Their formation is 1 Demon Prince, the aforementioned Kor Megron. Now, when you model your Kor Megron, there are no actual descriptions of him in the Codex. There are pictures of him on the old GW website, though. And it's the person who painted him is obviously this warband is obviously one of the studio armies. Someone who works there probably owns this army. I haven't seen it since. And he has one of those. He has the weird jump packy looking backpack on. So I'm not sure what that would constitute in the game, but I don't think he has wings. But that's the only thing. So feel free to make him however you want, except for the restrictions in this detachment. In addition to the Demon Prince, had 2 to 3 units of Chaos Space Marines. Restrictions. The Chaos Space Marines must take the Veterans of the Long War upgrade, and no units in this formation may take a Mark of Chaos. If you use this formation in your army, Kor Megron must be your warlord. You may not take multiple formations which require you to take a warlord other than Kor Megron, of course. And this detachment is unique.
Yes, there can only be one.
There can only be one Kor Megron. Special rules are: the Master's bidding, Kor Megron may join units of Chaos Space Marines from this detachment as if he were an independent character, including for the purposes of Lookout Sir rolls. This unit is treated as having a majority toughness of 5 while Kor Megron lives. Death to the False Emperor. All units in this detachment and all units within 12 inches of Kor Megron have the Hatred and Preferred Enemy special rule against Adepta Sororitas units, as well as any unit containing a generic or named version of one of the following characters: Ministorum Priest, Wolf Priest, or Chaplain. Old Grudges. Units from this formation fly into a blind, bloody frenzy when fighting Ultramarines. While any unit with the Adeptus Astartes Ultramarines faction is in play, units from this formation are fearless and have rage. So throughout the game, that unit is very pissed off.
Next up are the Corpse Makers. This is a large squad of Chaos Space Marines that rampage across the battlefield and murder pretty much everything in their path, as long as they're alive at least.
It's like a freaking swarm of Space Marines, dude.
Yep. They are from the Black Legion, so, Black Legion colors, black with gold trim, and Sons of Horus badges, if you can. And the formation is 1 squad of 20 Chaos Space Marines.
Yeah, it really struck me how some of these warbands are just a few dudes. They're not giant, like chapter-sized groups of Chaos Space Marines. Some of these warbands, it's 20 guys, all in 1 squad. That's them.
Yep. And that is actually perfectly okay, because it's just look at Khorne Berserkers. They're just like a couple of Khorne Berserkers that fly around looking for a fight. It doesn't have to be like hundreds of them. And there are 2 restrictions for this formation. The first one is that this unit must take the Veterans of the Long War upgrade and may not take a Mark of Chaos, because Black Legion, Chaos Undivided, so don't go there. And this detachment is also unique. Their special rules are Fleet and Crusader.
Simple and to the point. They get across the battlefield. They're like, we want to get into the fight.
In your face.
In your face. Well, speaking of in your face, we have Gladiator Group 138, which is a really interesting name. They have blood red power armor with gold trim. I wonder what they could be.
I think
World Eaters symbology. Oh.
might have someone who likes to crush things.
Yeah, or burn things,
or
possibly pulping. Yes, led by Kragon Gorefist. That's an awesome name. These are a group of Khorne marked CSM. So this formation is 1 to 3 squads of Khorne marked Chaos Space Marines or Berserkers. And their special rules are very simple. Reavers of Khorne, all models wielding chain axes gain the Rending special rule, while all models wielding power axes gain the Shred special rule. So be careful with that axe, Eugene, because you're going to cut some dudes up. So this is a very chaosy group. I think this would be fun to play, like all these together.
It's a nice mixed bunch of misfits.
Murdering fools. I think I'm ready for a break, though.
Yeah.
What about you guys?
Yeah, I think we could take a break, and then the next section should take about 2 minutes.
Yeah, because we these freaking fanboys.
Of course, when you're up against evil Chaos Space Marines with a vengeance against, or with a grudge against the Ultramarines, who shows up to fight them?
Duh! What do you think this is a giant galaxy of countless millions of light years in area, and that it would be totally dumb to have them right there just at the right moment to be redirected to intercept them. Come on, Snorri.
1,000 chapters of 1,000 Space Marines, well, plus minus, and
each
the
one
Ultramarines
with 10 companies.
Yeah, and it's the Ultramarines' second company that comes to the rescue.
Huzzah! Commercial.
Sicarius to the rescue again. So, Wendy, take it away.
Transmission incoming from the Adeptus Terra podcast. A new monthly UK-based 40K podcast has come into the universe, based around the hobby as a whole and the rich background of the 41st millennium. If you're looking for a fun, chilled-out podcast focusing on the fluff of the 41st millennium, with tricks and tips on taking part in the hobby, then why not give us a listen? You can find us on iTunes and Facebook as the Adeptus Terra podcast. You never know, you might just like it. Message ends.
And we're back from commercial break, and it's time to talk about the Ultramarines' second company. And I think that everything we need to say is look in the Space Marines Codex, and we're done. Commercial break.
Ultramarines, we're so awesome. Everybody loves us. We're so strong and so cool. That was my Ultramarine Second Company song. Isn't it nice?
Okay. Yeah, no.
The Ultramarine Second Company. We kind of covered these guys before in the Fall of Damnos, right?
Yes, and the Battle for Idolum is something that we get into very shortly, but it's pretty much Damnos all over again. I'm not going to spoil it, but, Sicarius does his thing, and I'm tired of this stuff. I just really don't like these guys. Mostly because Sicarius is just... There's something wrong with that guy.
After reading some of the fluff for these guys, Space Marines Codex and on the internet, I can kind of see where they are. The second company is a political company, kind of. So the Sicarius and the second company captain himself is a bureaucratic position. So he's the master of the watch, which means he's charged with the defense of Ultramar itself and managing the personnel of the PDF throughout the Ultima Segmentum, right? He also has to prosecute judgment over people who breach the Codex Astartes, not like executions or anything, but he'll censure people. it's not all paper pushing, right? He actually does. He also, as the Knight Champion, must answer all challenges to the chapter, including those from within the Imperium. So at one point, he had to duel, and by duel I mean duel against someone's champion. When an Inquisitor tried to tear down Tigerius for being a witch. That's a pretty cool story. It's just the position itself in the Second Company is a very political one, and Sicarius does a really good job of it. He was born a noble on Ultramar, but he was raised as a militant. So he's this military noble, very classical, like very British. Like he was classically trained in the arts. He was also trained to fight. He's a man of letters. Like everything about him screams like British gentleman of the Victorian age. And maybe that's why, because I'm a filthy colonialist. I'm not sure what the Norway's history with Britain is, except for the whole like invading once in a while type thing. But maybe that has something to do with it.
I'm not sure if I would say he's typically British in the sense that, you know, classically trained and all that. I think it's more of a general, like, old world nobility
aristocracy
kind of
that we kind of have totally rejected in the past century. So
yeah, well, I guess that the U.S. never really had aristocracy in that kind of way because, well, the aristocrats, they just stayed in Europe and kicked the others out. But then again, Norway's a socialist country, so aristocracy, who cares?
I'm gonna let you in a little secret, Snorri. The aristocracy is still very strong in the United States.
You mean the faux?
I think the aristocracy we have today is more aristocratic than it was back then. But I think that's a discussion for our other podcast, Social Norms in the 21st Century podcast with Adam and Snorri.
Oh, speaking of other podcasts, we really need to get our Godzilla podcast going again.
Well, of course it has. You've been so busy being in love and crap. No, not a single Godzilla podcast in the past, 6 months. I'm very disappointed.
Okay, well, Second Company, Ultramarines.
So, yeah, I mean, these guys have been stacked with honors throughout their career. Like, that, everything they do, everything that a normal company does, or a normal squad in a company does, a squad in the Second Company has to take it to the next level. Like, for example, there's a Devastator squad. And Devastator squads are great at taking out tanks and stuff. But the Devastator squad Altavan of Second Company earned the nickname the Titan Slayers after destroying Renegade Titan Soul Mauler. Like, we're just going to kill a Titan. You know, you guys think killing tanks is cool. How about we just kill this Titan over here?
Yeah, one-upmanship.
Yeah, and Sicarius himself is like that. He'll just throw himself into the fray. And as we saw in Dabnos, even if it means losing that symbol of leadership, sometimes, yes, you want to be the symbol and give your troops the morale they need to fight, but at the same time, if you lose that level of leadership, it can cause chaos. So he sometimes doesn't really think about it, even though I hesitate to say he's foolish. But it is the hallmark of that company to just throw themselves into the fight. Fights including the liberation of Graia, the Tamari rebellions, the retaking of Fort Telrendar, the liberation of Bonhama, and of course the assault on Blackreach and the Damnos incident, as well as countless campaigns against the Tyranids and the Orcs. Like, they're always busy, always being redirected somewhere because they have what it takes to get the job done. And they have the mentality to fight anything. They're not going to hem and haw over anything. They're going to just get the job done and move on to the next thing they can be lauded and have glory heaped upon them for.
And having Sicarius as your leader just means that, it's probably going to work just fine anyway, so charge.
Yep. Just get in there. Get stuck in there. You'll be fine.
So, enough praise over these guys, and let's move on to the Battle of Idalim, as seen from the Ultramarine side. Over 200 Chaos Space Marines assaulted the Eagle Gate, which is now known as the Gate of Martyrs. And the Ultramarine 2nd Company, along with a small number of 1st Company, were diverted to Idalim with a rather elated Sicarius in charge.
He couldn't really contain his excitement over this opportunity he has.
They deployed their entire strength into the midst of the Imperial Guard defenders, and a massive battle heaped bodies and wreckage at the gates, leaving countless casualties and the city
entire
on fire.
east quarter of the city was on fire.
That's a nice funeral pyre.
Yes. So a final stand of Marines and Guardsmen held the gate against the enemy, and Sicarius himself engaged the Demon Prince Kor Megron in single combat, as you do.
Yeah, I think we've seen this before. Only was a evil robot thing.
Yeah. And they traded blows. Yeah, that's the Inquisitors. Oh well, yeah, there's that too. Yeah, he does this a lot.
Yeah. He sees the main man, and then he just can't contain himself. He just like, yeah, I'm gonna
so
kill you.
So they traded blows. Sicarius was hammered by Kor Megron. His magic sword actually got notched and scratched by the hammering blows from the demon's sword swings. But a lone guardsman saw the captain in trouble, ran up and stuck the demon with his bayonet. Of course, the guardsman was instantly vaporized, turned to a pile of ash by Kor Megron. But Sicarius took that small opportunity he had to skewer the demon in the heart with his sword and send the demon to hell for 100 years or whatever it is.
I think it's banishment for at least 1,000 years.
Well, whatever the case, he's gone for a while.
Yeah, and again, it's Sicarius charging headlong into battle against the biggest, ugliest thing. He gets smacked around, almost dies, and then something happens and he survives again. It's Damnos all over again, I'm telling you. And this brings us to the one and only scenario for this episode, the Martyrs of Eagle Gate. For the Chaos Forces, you may bring up to 6,000 points of Chaos Space Marines, and you should bring the Sons of Damnation, the Corpse Makers, Gladiator Group 138, and the Force-Born
but that'll only be 1,000, 1,500 points, something like that. You should have lots of points left over for all manner of evil McNasties with 3+ armor save.
Oh yeah. And for the Imperial Forces, bring 3,000 points of mixed Imperial Guard and 3,000 points of Ultramarines, representing the 2nd Company and including Captain Sicarius. All Ultramarines units must be able to deep strike, preferably in drop pods.
I think the 2nd Company is very well represented in the Space Marines Codex. I don't think you'll have a hard time building the 2nd Company. There's also a small contingent of 1st Company, so I would bring 1 or 2 squads of Terminators to go along with them, and obviously Sicarius. I strongly recommend a new formation. For this particular battle, I think that the Skyhammer Annihilation Force formation, that's only available by downloading it because it was exclusive. I think that really works really well for this particular scenario. It's I think the Battle Company plus the Battle Demi Company plus some 1st Company and some Skyhammer action, I think would be absolutely perfect for this mission, and I think it'll really reflect the fluff of what happened here.
And for a big game like this, an 8-foot table and Vanguard Strike deployment is recommended. If you have them, place walls blocking off the back of corner of the Imperial deployment zone. Place a large gate in the center of this wall.
So the special rules for this scenario are as follows. Angels on Burning Wings. The Ultramarines must deploy via Deep Strike. When a drop pod arrives via Deep Strike, instead of placing the drop pod, place a large blast marker and scatter it. Resolve the blast as a Strength 6 AP4 bomb with Strike Down. The drop pod then arrives at the location using the tank shock rule if there are any remaining enemies. Though no death or glory attacks are allowed, the pods are just coming in too fast to react. If models would not normally be able to disembark due to other models being in the way, push them into close combat with any enemy units which are blocking them. This doesn't constitute a charge, and therefore the Ultramarines player does not receive an extra attack for charging, and the Chaos Space Marine player may not overwatch. And the second rule is stuck in. The Imperial Guard and Chaos Space Marines forces may not deploy in reserves of any kind. They're already there. They're already fighting. This is the last stand. Objectives. So this is a mission of holding ground. The Eagle Gate is an objective worth 6 points itself at the end of the game. If Captain Sicarius loses his last wound, replace him with an objective. The Fallen Hero from our narrative objectives list, also worth 6 points. Otherwise, players take it in turn placing 6 other objective markers on the field, all using the Adepta Sororitas narrative objectives due to this being a cardinal world. These 6 objectives are worth 3 points each at the end of the game. So basically, honored relics and stuff like that, as well as the fact that we're taking ground.
Important ecclesiarchal people.
Yeah, I would actually use these as mysterious because they're just dropping in and people are just scattered all about and it is just wreckage everywhere. So it's very likely that you don't know what you have there. So I think mysterious in this case is the way to go instead of just picking your objectives. And that's it for the Battle of Eagle Gate. I hope you all enjoy it. Be sure to download the PDF to get all your info on these 4 final formations and the mission. What do you think, Snorri? These are some fun couple of factions. Obviously, lots of people have dealt with the Second Company before.
Yeah, I think they're pretty much a super over-covered company by now. Yep. Mostly because Games Workshop seems to include them in every single Space Marine
Yeah,
codex.
I really only included them here because I thought Kor Megron's Warband was so interesting, but it was also, the Ultramarines were their primary enemy and the one that finally took them down. And I think it's an interesting enough story where let's just go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off, because I thought that the Warband was really cool. The fact that the Demon Prince was able to pull together so many disparate forces without it actually being a Black Crusade really sets up any Chaos player to develop their own fluff along those lines. If we have any Chaos players listening, which we should, and you're interested in a Chaos Undivided battle group, go ahead and look up the fluff for Kor Megron. Clearly we've covered it here, but there's more to it than we have time for. So give it a try. It's a really cool part of the background, and I think totally developed from games at Games Workshop and people actually playing the game and playtesting it and stuff. All right, we're going to have the narrative battle report, and then we're going to close out the show. But first, these words.
Dallas-Fort Worth Nerd Night is a community organization that throws tabletop gaming parties for charity. We believe tabletop gamers are uniquely qualified to build better local communities because of the types of relationships built while gaming. If you'd like to learn more about how you can play games and help people with DFW Nerd Night, check out www.dfwnn.org. That's www.dfwnn.org. Thanks.
The Raid on Pekeshi 4, Part 2, The Scouring. Codesir Dialix Tasong was annoyed. The orcs were a menace, to be sure, but his annoyance overwhelmed any other emotions the Imperial Creed demanded of him. The orcs had followed them from Shitara to Pakeshi 4. Certainly the orcs wouldn't be in search of the same thing as they, so their presence must be attributed to terrible luck. To lose one system to overwhelming force was one thing, but to allow a splinter group get a foothold in a neighboring system was a blow to honor that he couldn't allow. This compounded Tasong's annoyance. There was no extricating the Blood Ravens from this fight. To do so would not only affect their reputation, but the information they sought would likely be lost forever. So they fought on, and Tasong's combat team echoed his irritation as they moved through Urban Center PLX-47, cleansing the city of the Xenos presence there. He didn't need to harness the warp in order to guess their mood. Their silence as they drove through the streets, bikes growling, was enough for him to know they were suppressing complaints. This was not work for Astartes. Every few minutes they would come across a pack of slavering orcs. The 22 bolters mounted on their bikes firing swarms of mass-reactive micro-rockets made quick work of the Xenos filth. As they moved through the city, more and more of it showed signs of battle. Buildings were burnt out or pockmarked with holes. Dead orcs and dead Pakeshi PDF littered the streets along with the wreckage of vehicles, both military and civilian, all of which they gave the kiss of sizzling promethium as they passed. In time, the entire quarter of the city was aflame, but Tasong knew better than to leave orc remains uncremated. Their progress began to slow as they were forced to weave through the detritus of war. It also became clear that the central power had gone out. As the light of day began to fade, the street lamps remained dim. Eventually, Vox silence was broken by their central command team near the Inquisitorial compound. Patrol B3, copy, Codex Astartes. He gestured the team to halt. Go on, Sergeant. Chapter Master Revueltas was still aboard their battle barge, the Carrying Crown, which had been on business elsewhere in the sector, and it hadn't arrived in response to this threat as of yet. Sergeant Miranda had previously been placed in command of the research effort, and so had remained in command when fighting broke out. As the sergeant of his own command squad, Revueltas was certainly grooming the younger Astartes for command, and Codesar Tasong had no reason to remove him yet. A simple operation against an undisciplined orc raid would be a good lesson for the young battle brother. The Pakeshi 4 323rd has finally arrived, though they have sustained heavy casualties. Captain Blaze has informed us that the Imperial Commander Falks was headed towards your sector of the city when she took her leave of them 6 hours ago. Information, not a plan of action. The sergeant was still uncomfortable giving orders to a more experienced officer. What are your orders, Sergeant Miranda? There was a long pause over the Vox before he replied. Fan out. Make your presence known. If she sees Astartes, she will come to you. If you encounter the enemy, eliminate them. Very well, he replied, without a thought, hopefully granting the young sergeant a bit of confidence in his decision. It was the right one, after all. Seconds later, the tactical display in his helmet zoomed out and highlighted a building less than a kilometer distant. With a gesture, he signaled his brothers to move out in a wide formation. The roar of their bikes echoed through the darkening streets. Deaf Dread Fred's mind, as usual, was a singularity of torment. However, the pain of his existence lessened the more he fought, so he stomped through the city, ripping apart buildings and carving into chimera tanks. His 3 scissoring claws ended any human who dared come near him, and a single-bladed wrecking ball swung about him, striking down swaths of human troopers. Of course, he sustained damage as he went, but the orc mechs who held his figurative leash were able to repair him good as new after each skirmish. Part of his mind registered the pile of spare parts loaded onto each of the orc trucks, and felt more than a little dismay that it would take far more than a few skirmishes to end his eternal torment. Sometimes he would try to lash out at his masters, but his rusted bulk was crawling inside and out with little grots and runts poking and prodding him whenever he had orders to follow. If he tried raising a claw against the mech, searing hot agony would course through his being until he could not even think, let alone act on his desires. When the Blood Ravens roared into view on their bikes and brandished both plasma and grav guns, A deep relief coursed through him, almost overcoming the pain. Yes, this would be the day when he finally ended his living hell. He roared, his delight echoed by the looted voxcasters festooned on his metal shell. Roarg! The orcs took up the cry and pulled up both flanks in their trucks, hooting with glee. Commander Celia Falks witnessed the battle unfold before her. The Astartes broke into 3 groups. A squad of bikes sped past her position on the right and another on the left, while the librarian and his team maintained a reserve in the center. Commander Falks was relieved to see them. She had left the company of Captain Blaze several long hours ago. That decision had left her feeling terribly conflicted, and she once again prayed to the God Emperor to bolster the bravery of the Pikeshi 4 323rd. The captain had requested that she stay with him, of course, but she had ordered him to hold his ground while she made her escape. There had been no disappointment or accusing glare that she might expect from other leaders under her. Blaze was a good man. Instead of falling back to a more stable position, he'd ordered his company to Falks's bunker in order to rescue her and her advisors. At her decision, he had simply set his jaw, furrowed his brow, and had given her a quick salute. "Good luck, Commander. We won't let them break through." "Thank you, Captain. Good luck to you." Just do me a favor and don't die." The brashness had amused her even in that terrible moment, with the orcs pressing against their lines, the screaming of their chain weapons echoed by the screaming of the dying men filling her ears. "I'll try not to." She hadn't offered him the same sentiment. She had surmised it would have been a hollow one. She allowed herself a pause and added, "Die well, Captain." Captain Blaze had grinned. The memory of that grin had been part of what had sustained her since her escape. "That I will, though I'll be damned if it's going to be today." And with that, Commander Falks had taken her leave of him, heading towards the heavily fortified inquisitorial compound she knew should lie only 2 kilometers north of her position. Unfortunately, 2 kilometers became 4, and then 6 as she ran into orc patrols and impossible roadblocks. Throughout her flight, she had been very glad for the uniform jumper and armor she donned at the outset of the hostilities. Sure, she'd received some odd looks from some of the rank and file. She was nobility, after all, and not a warrior. But after clambering over dangerous rusted wreckage and hiding amidst foul refuse and cold corpses, it had served her well in comparison to her usual finery. After hours of scampering from street to street, her luck had turned. She'd found a tall, broken building which oddly seemed to be the only structure for kilometers around which still had power. She had searched the building thoroughly for a Vox unit of some kind, but not long into the search she'd heard the roar of bikes approaching. She had climbed to the threadbare top floor and heard quite clearly the roar of Astartes bikes from the north and buzzing orc jalopies approaching from the south. Now, only minutes later, she stood atop the highest spot on the building, unarmed and exposed. She was unaccustomed to this. Although she'd been born noble, it had taken years of work as a rogue trader in this sector to attain her position as an imperial commander. The life of a rogue trader was not an easy one, even for the nobility in command. Of course, she'd also been one to take care of the most difficult situations personally. Now, her very survival and the good organization and morale of her protectorate hinged on the actions of one small band of Astartes, and there was nothing she could do to help. The sun sank into the southeast horizon. The rays caught 1 billion broken windows and lit the darkness of the streets below with pools of twinkling fire. There, in the rusted middens of the ruined building, the bike-mounted Astartes on the left flank poured a cacophony of weapons fire into an oncoming orc truck and dreadnought. The dreadnought shrugged off the lighter weapons, while a plasma blast cooked off a chunk of the ruin, evaporating the plascrete instantly. 4 orcs leapt out of their ramshackle vehicle and joined the bright red dreadnought in the charge. The orcs were humongous, most as large as the Astartes themselves. The Marines were showered with the rusted remains of a wall as the dreadnought crashed through it and began slicing into the Space Marines. It jabbed out with an open claw, and in a hiss crash of hydraulics, cut through both bike and rider in one gut-wrenching motion. Another was knocked from his bike with a swinging metal ball on a chain, sending him careening out of sight. The orcs made contact as well, swinging a flurry of heavy attacks. The violence of the orc attack would have been shocking to a less experienced individual. Falks was still disheartened to see the noble ancient warriors meet such an inglorious end. The Astartes to her right fared much better, however. They charged an orc vehicle at full speed. Normal human beings on bikes might have been crushed under the weight of even the most modest of orc machines. But 3 Space Marines on bikes, which alone must have been 6 feet from wheel to handlebars and weighing almost a ton each, were fast-moving wrecking balls. The crashing crunch was devastating. The orc's vehicle sputtered and the engine choked on its own fuel, shooting flames and black soot into the sky. The orcs, to their credit, boosted out of their jalopy and engaged with the Marines who darted away on their bikes, sustaining minimal damage. The orc dreadnought carved through Codex Astartes' battle brothers on his left flank with terrifying ease. Although it was scorched with plasma burns and a few armor plates were dented by crack blasts, it kept coming. The armed beast seemed to be acting with little actual clear direction, but its single-minded efficiency was not to be discounted. The orc dreadnought was, however, slow, so he ordered the bike squad guarding him to engage with the dreadnought at range. Meanwhile, the battle brothers of Bike Squad Salvatore on his right flank were playing cat-and-mouse games with a mob of orcs, who were attempting to exact vengeance for their smoking wreck. Tasong allowed himself a moment of distraction and focused his mind. Before the orcs could make another chaotic lunge at his men, he opened himself to the warp. Its flood of emotions filled his heart with lava and his mind with ice. He stitched together a mosaic of telepathic hate and blasted the orcs with it. 3 of the greenskins vomited their brains out from their own eye sockets. Their mates only needed a few moments bearing witness to the fountain of meat ejecting from their comrades' facial orifices to make the rather pragmatic decision to run away. He found the inner strength to push away the desire to reach deeper for more and more warp energy. The clanking of the dreadnought was closer now. Rather than allow them to chase down the orcs, Tasong ordered Salvatore and his men to fall back to his position and reinforce their defense against the dreadnought. Tasong disengaged the maglock of his plasma pistol and braced for the metal beast's charge. The bright red, shambling beast of steel, glass, and rust made as if to charge their position as expected, but suddenly it halted. What muted senses Deaf Dread Fred possessed allowed him to hear the orc knobs behind him fire up their truck again and prepare for another assault. He could also somehow and inexplicably feel the warm blood of the Space Marines slowing off his claws in rivulets. The grots and runts fed his mind a dose of ecstasy which overwhelmed his torment tenfold. He wept in spite of himself. More, he thought. More blood. More war. More war. More war. He found another target, and clarity of purpose filled him as it never had before, and he was stopped. A spike of agony. Why? Why, oh why? He could sense it. Power coursed through the building to his left. The objective lay within. No, he begged unseen and uncaring forces to let him continue his slaughter. He tried one more time to lunge at the Space Marines within stomping distance. Pain seared his mind again. The knobs buzzed past on their ramshackle transport, intent on doing the job for him. No, 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 no! But he felt his mind prodded towards the power source inside the building. Somewhere within his body, a runt was smashing on his soul with some kind of spanner or driver. He gave in and stumbled into the crumbling hulk. A trapdoor popped open in his hull somewhere, and a little grot trailed by a long cable raced towards an interface, glowing green in the gloom. The grot tinkered with the mechanism for several moments, and Deaf Dread Fred suddenly felt an ice pick in his mind as it began to fill. Millions of lines of data fed directly into his brain in a single cold thrust. A red blindness took him. No, 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 no. Heresy! What remained of the orcs were butchered. Brother Ixo lost his leg and his bike, but he would live. Tusong focused his attention on the dreadnought. Bring it down. Sergeant Salvatore's squad unleashed a torrent of green gravity gunfire, while Tusong's plasma pistol spat superheated destruction. The dreadnought seemed suddenly blind with rage. It charged at Tusong's position, then reeled against Salvatore, but something was horribly wrong within the machine. It screamed, "No! No, no, no! Heresy!" and fell over, smoking. Tusong had always marveled at the silence that marked the end of a battle. In the distance, the war sputtered on, but here it was so quiet. It was as if quiet were a whole new concept to the embattled warriors. A voice broke that silence. "Astartes!" a human female called in the nearest ruin, the one where his brothers had fallen only moments ago. 3 red condition trackers still glowed in his helmet's tactical display. He whisked them away with a blink of an eye. He replied, "State your name, citizen." The woman started climbing down. "I am Imperial Commander Falks. I must go to our command post, wherever it is now." Tusong regarded her with a raised eyebrow. Her words rung true. She had the command presence, and her uniform and decorations seemed to warrant such a title. "We have been ordered to see you to safety, Commander." "Good." She was an older woman. Her hair was pure white, and as one in her station tends to, she was plump, but not ungainly. She jumped the last 4 feet of her climb. "Thank you, librarian?" "Close enough. I am Codesir Tusong. We will call for a transport." "That is not necessary. I see plenty of transport here." "I disagree. In any of these vehicles, our bikes included, you are woefully exposed. This system needs its leader. We shall take shelter within this ruined building and await transport. It should not take long." "Very well, Codesir Tusong. I trust your judgment in these matters." Tusong was impressed. Most unaugmented humans were swayed by Astartes' suggestions, but few did so without some manner of intimidation. Commander Falks had not only accepted his plan, but had risked exposing her own ignorance in the process. Tusong knew this was the mark of someone who has risen through the ranks through the virtue of their success rather than their political will. Honesty is not often rewarded in the Imperium, but success usually is. And this particular Imperial commander had learned the important lesson that success is far more likely when one listens to those around them and factors that available expertise in their decisions. Tusong toggled his Vox relay. "We have the objective." Sergeant Miranda radioed back. "Status?" 3 brothers killed. No chance of gene seed retrieval. Zone is hot. Requesting a rhino for the commander's extraction. A brief pause. "We can have it to your location in 10 minutes, but your men will hold her there. You will proceed to the East Stronghold and take command there." Tusong rolled those words around in his head. "You will proceed." The young brother was improving, but he replied, "That I will, Sergeant." Before taking his leave, however, Tusong waved his men over to the wreckage of the Orc dreadnought. Its behavior had been curious. "Sergeant Mangor, take your men and investigate the ruin where this thing was distracted." While they did that, Tusong explored the broken shell of the dreadnought. It was a curious design, but a variation of one he'd seen throughout the galaxy in his service. One interesting note with this one, though, were the many bodies of the small orc demi-species. An orc dreadnought rarely boasted more than one or two, but this one had been home to a dozen or more. When he cut the hatch open, he saw a gruesome scene. A cramped compartment lay within. 3 tiny demi-orcs had died. All 3 of them seemed to have been electrocuted, though that wasn't what had given him pause. In the center of the compartment, a brain seemed to be embedded in the floor. Attached to that brain were dozens of cruel-looking instruments. Bottles of medicine were also strewn about. The smell was the worst, though. The smell of orcs was bad enough, but Tasong could smell that somewhere within the hulk, amniotic fluid was leaking out and burning. "That's a human brain," said Sergeant Mangor. Tasong had been so engrossed with his work that he hadn't noticed Mangor had returned. Report. A storage device, not a data scroll repository, but a proper digital bank. It was wiped clean. Just now? No way to tell. Tasong sighed. This brain has a data transfer module attached to it. I see it. You think perhaps we'll have to bring it back with us? Agreed, Codicer. But it smells like this thing is leaking amniotic fluid somewhere. That brain could be dead by the time we can do anything with it. Are you suggesting that we repair Xenos technology? I am suggesting we preserve what was stolen from the Imperium, sir. Tasong grunted. Let's get this open. After dragging it under the cover of the ruined building, 2 brothers cut and pried the front plate off the dreadnought and shined a light within. Commander Falk sucked in air. Throne, help us. The body of a man floated within a transparent crucible of amniotic fluid, his head affixed to the top of the cylinder. It was already a quarter empty, but the machinery sustaining him seemed to be working for the time being. His eyes were wide, though, staring into nothing. He was familiar. His wide blue eyes, his bushy eyebrows, and his angular features. It was his amputated right arm, just below the elbow, where a bionic implant once called home, which sealed the identification into Sang's mind. I know this man. The brothers looked up at him. He sighed and toggled his Vox. Command, we're going to need a land crawler as well. There was a squall of static then. Understood. ETA 10 minutes. After a few moments, Tasong said, Brothers, this is the Ordo Xenos Inquisitor Federico Cafane. We thought he was lost on Shatara. Clearly, he was lost more than we can ever know. One of the brothers broke the long silence which followed. The Inquisition? That's the last... Enough, brother, he interjected. He didn't want anyone to complete that train of thought. We must save him if we can. His mind may reveal information about not only the orcs' presence here, but ours as well. Memories were easier for Edburna than other orcs. Some of his memories were very old indeed, though he didn't possess the capacity to actually gauge the time which had passed since their inception. The Blood Ravens were a recent memory, though, only 1 generation distant. Of course, the chapter's true name was unknown to him. Their appearance and combat doctrine unfolded before him when they struck out with methodical yet brazen attacks on either of Edburna's flanks. The enemy's line was arrayed before him. The rest of the orc patrols throughout the city were striking randomly and rather wantonly. However, some, like his, had a purpose. Fortunately, his objective didn't lie behind the enemy position, but certainly within firing range. To his right, only a half a block distant, a tall building held a squad of Marines with heavy shooters, spitting deadly ammunition into any unit which came within range and sight. The rest of the buildings at that range seemed to be full of the enemy, but Space Marines' shoot-a-fire was like that. They would move about inside their positions and fire from all angles to confuse you. Edburna would not be confused by big stupid beakies. He sent in several waves of orcs to test the enemy's strength. He soon learned that this part of the enemy line was held by only 3 squads of the enemy. Certainly the heavy weapons team was the most dangerous of the threats within range of their objective, but it was not impossible to press. He could sense it, too. The object buried in the park. It lay beneath the surface, between the park's trio of gnarled and malformed trees. There was power buried there. He was surprised the Yumis hadn't noticed it before. Or could it be that it was calling to him? Was it that before it hadn't wanted to be found? And now it felt a kindred presence nearby and called out for him? That must be it. He felt another presence in the warp. It was quite strong. His instincts told him that somewhere beyond the park, inside one of the ruins, a blue-armored marine had arrived. The Beakies sometimes tried to confuse the orcs by always painting their armor blue, but the Blood Ravens were more sporting about it and only painted their Weird Boys' armor blue. This made it much easier to pick them out in a fight. It didn't matter. They would continue to press the Yumis on all fronts and find the little morsels of knowledge left behind long ago. Edburn remembered some of it, but it was so far back that it wasn't a part of him anymore. It was an echo of something that someone else did. But funny thing about echoes was that you may not know what they're saying, but you can hear them just the same, and if you're good, you can tell where they're coming from. Addendum. The fate of Ordo Xenos Inquisitor Federico Cafane. Ordo Xenos Inquisitor Federico Cafane was the kind of man who preferred to really throw himself into his work. He didn't balk at the idea of mingling with the Xenos races whose study was his duty. When he found himself venturing out of the Ultima Segmentum to study the odd Wa Drillteeth and its strange warlords, he quaffed a dangerous amount of chameleonic potions and dressed the part of a big hairy orc. He lived among Wa Drillteeth for several weeks, spending much of his time among the Brain Boys and learning everything he could as a sort of gopher for Big Mech Scarhead. After a time, before his potions could run their course, Cafane packed away all his data slates and what treasures he dared bring with him and stole out of the camp in the dead of night, making for his stealth transport. He didn't make it very far. A mob of Scarhead's grot riggers stopped him just outside the camp and urged him back with makeshift rusted metal implements and zappy weapons which looked almost as dangerous for the targets as they were for the wielder. They led him to a clearing in one of the scrap piles where mountains of equipment were piled in haphazard ruin. "Got us a runaway spy," said Scarhead. "Dunno what you sayin', boss," replied Federico. Scarhead narrows his red-eyed gaze at the Inquisitor. "Done fool me, Umi. Dem others, yeah, but I'm too trig for the likes of you. Though I do say you gives me some good time to watch how you work. Learn how you think. You've been teaching for me and mine. Very good, I say thank you." "How could you tell?" "How can I tell?" he says. Amusement played across his ravaged face, and all the Gretchen, both seen and unseen amidst the leaning piles of refuse, giggled. "How do you tell if an orc came to you for a mech boy in service, eh? You smells him, and you says do this, and he can't do it, and you scan him." Scarhead held up a device which Federico knew never left Scarhead's possession. "You scan all wrong, Yumi." Federico's heart began pounding. "So you have me. Kill me, then. My service to the Emperor ends today, and it ends without shame. None can say that the career of Inquisitor Federico Cafane was not storied or without honor." "Sure, Fred. It be the end of your service to the big gold man on the big gold toilet, but kill ya? I dunna think so, Umi. Now you serve Wug Drillteeth. You serve from now till your days are done. You still mostly orc, at least for the next few turns. The Dread will know what to do with ya," he chortled. No, you mustn't." "No? You wanna be an orc, yeah? Well, you got to be bigger. And meaner than any proper orc, that's for sure. Right, lads? All the Gretchen laughed and laughed as they manhandled and heaved Federico Cafani into the rusty middens of a clanking red mound of claws and death. And yes, the Dread knew just what to do with the Inquisitor.
Hey everybody, check out Veterans of the Long War, a Warhammer 40k podcast on iTunes and on Facebook. We are a 40k podcast based out of Western Massachusetts with contributors from other parts of New England. We talk hobby, tactics, news, and rumors, check out new releases, and talk about our local and regional 40k scene. We're looking for new contributors, so get in touch if you want to be a part. Check us out on iTunes and Facebook. That's Veterans of the Long War, a Warhammer 40k podcast.
Well, so that is that. That is episode 32 of Masters of the Forge. We're getting up there, aren't we?
But we are really far from, overlords or independent characters. They've broken the hundreds.
Oh, yeah. It'll be a while before we get into the hundos, dude.
But, as long as we're chugging along and releasing new episodes, we're getting there eventually.
Mm-hmm. Yep, we will. We're still having a nice time with it, and we hope that you follow us along. Come down the crazy path with us.
Well, you're listening to the show, so you're already on the crazy path.
Yeah, that's a fact. Oh man! So before we close out the show, I want to do our kind of community corkboard thing. The Nerdist podcast has been doing that too now. They do, instead of just pimping what Chris Hardwick's doing, they have listeners can submit their own, creative thing that they're doing for mentioning on the show, which I think is really cool. But I'm going to do mine today. My community corkboard is, on July 18th. That is not next weekend, but the weekend after. Next weekend is the Weird Al concert, and that's going to be awesome. But the weekend after that, we're doing a Combat Patrol tournament. We're going to do 6 games of hilarity and hijinks, and it's 400-point lists. Just go on ahead and build yourself a 400-point list and be ready to have a flurry of many games. Since there's 6 games, clearly losing a game is kind of meaningless. You still have a chance to win. And doesn't everybody win when we're having fun?
If it's anything like Combat Patrol tournament at Adepticon, just participating is going to be entertaining, or is going to be plenty entertaining.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I've also limited some things. No flyers, no flying monstrous creatures. I think that'll increase the enjoyment slightly more. You're only allowed to have one troop that isn't normally a troop, I guess. It's not a non-infantry troops. So bikes, jet bikes, Terminators, you can only have one unit of those as a troop, just to kind of keep things even. And I think it'll be a fun time. We're having fun. We're using my Golden Sprue Cup missions for that. And in October, we have an ITC tournament coming up at the Council of Five Nations convention in Schenectady, New York. So I would love it if folks could get signed up for that. It's really important that we get names and get people kind of registered beforehand, because it's possible we could get into GT territory with that tournament before too long. All the information for these events can be found at the Upstate Honor Guard Facebook page. It's called Upstate Honor Guard Warhammer 40k events page. I want everybody to go there, check out the events, sign up for them, and like that page, please. But what other Facebook page should we talk about in the outro here?
I don't know. Overlords?
I don't know. Overlords, yeah, you should go to the Overlords Facebook page. It's a lot of fun. Lots of discussion. Oh wait, no, Masters of the Forge. those guys.
I guess while you're at it, we probably should ask you to please give us some positive reviews on iTunes.
That would be super nice and super helpful.
Helps us find more listeners.
Yeah, and Twitter too. Masters of Forge helps our SEO. Go ahead and follow us on the Twitter space, and we do post our episodes there. Sometimes post other stuff, engaging with other community members there. So we're kind of old though. It's like Twitter is fast. Like, I don't know how anybody keeps up with Twitter. You start adding a few people, and all of a sudden your feed is just full of people. It's just hard.
But a place that isn't so fast is our blog. That's where we post the episodes and also any kind of material that needs to be posted, like the scenarios, the formations, all that stuff. So, with that said, is there anything else we need to pimp?
Hobby Progress Challenge. Independent Characters Hobby Progress Challenge is going strong. It is still not too late to earn yourself a bronze, and I think even a silver medal in that if you started this month in July. It's at theindependentcharacters.com. Click on the forums, sign yourself up, introduce yourself, and start painting, because we're all in this together. We're all in this painting thing together, as you heard in the intro. So, but yeah, I think that's it, Snorri. Maybe next week, maybe we'll talk about some Killzone. Next fortnight. We've got we might be able to get a gym on or something. Maybe. Well, we'll see. But until then,
play hard.
Yes, kill your opponent, slay them,
humiliate them,
make them weep, humiliate them. Well, no, we're not playing Age of Sigmar.
No, actually, play the game the way you want to. The music used in this podcast was made by Parad of the duo Sublevel 3. The track is used with his permission. This podcast is protected by the Creative Commons Attribution, No Derivatives, Non-Commercial International License. More information about this license and contact information if you have any requests can be found at our blog, mastersoftheforge.com. And there we are.
This, Kor Megron.
And Jason, that is the first official Star Trek attack wing of the day.
Star Trek attack wing, cornbread. Word bear.
Jason, you're gonna love this, because this is not in the mumble recording. This is just you and me. Ha ha ha. Okay, yeah, let's go there.
What was I saying?
Kor? A large squad of Next up is the course makers. There we go. They make courses for your meal.
They make courses they're really good at landscaping, for golfing.
Alternately, they are teachers. They make courses for a university.
That's true. I can see them doing this. There you go, Jason.
that is an outtake.
Yes.
If there ever was one. Black Legion is Chaos United. Sorry, not Chaos United. That's like a soccer team.
Chaos United. Goal. Yeah, Chaos Undivided.
Exactly.
Speaking of in your face, we have Gladiator. The Ultramarines.
The Ultramarines.
One drop on.
Second company.
Two companies. It's such a good feeling to play games your way. It's such a happy feeling, 40K'ing away. And when you throw dice with story in mind, it's such a wonderful way to unwind. It's a good feeling, a very good feeling, the feeling you know that we'll be back when the fortnight's new, and we'll have new ideas for you, and you'll have things you'll want to talk about. We will too.